My name is Jonathan Wright. I'm an associate in Hunton Andrews Kurth's privacy team in the London office. Thank you for tuning in, and I'm here to discuss some of the issues associated with remote working during the COVID-19 pandemic, but more specifically related to the use of video conferencing tools by employees. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen more employees working remotely than ever before, which has resulted in the vast majority of organisations having to adapt their working from home arrangements to accommodate for an increase in the number of employees at home. In order to facilitate remote working and help employees stay connected, companies are increasingly relying on video conferencing tools and technologies. These tools aren't new, and I'm sure most people listening will have used a video conferencing tool and may use them on a daily basis. However, in the current climate, they're becoming an essential way for doing business. These tools allow individuals to stay connected to their colleagues and organisations to stay connected to customers and contacts. This, in short, allows businesses to keep operating, but it's not just about business, it's also about offering support to employees, and by allowing them to stay connected, it avoids any concerns around feelings of anxiety or isolation during this unprecedented time. As such, there's both a business and social angle to the use of video conferencing tools, which is entirely understandable. The purpose of this memo is not to be unrealistic and put too many constraints on the way organisations can use these tools. However, there are a few things to bear in mind that should help minimise the risk of using video conferencing tools. Just because these tools are convenient and essential for allowing businesses to continue to operate, organisations should not ignore or overlook the need to ensure that these tools have adequate security measures in place to protect the privacy of users and confidential business information. There have already been concerns raised over the security of a number of video conferencing services, and this has led to the UK Information Commissioner's Office, the UK regulator, publishing blogs advising companies on how best to use video conferencing tools securely. The guidance from the UK ICO outlines several key issues for companies to consider when using video conferencing technologies. Firstly, we've seen an increase in the number of COVID-19 related phishing attempts. Cybercriminals, being the entrepreneurial bunch they are always seeking to exploit new conditions, and in this case it's to exploit staff working in unfamiliar conditions. While staff may be able to recognise phishing emails, they may not know what to be wary of when using video conferencing tools, especially if they don't regularly use them on a day-to-day basis. For example, a number of conferencing solutions allow participants to share attachments and links. Employees should be made aware of this fact and told to avoid clicking on links or attachments from attendees they do not recognise. While in most cases, employees will know the people they're video conferencing with, it is the case more so now than ever before that video conferencing tools are being used for webinars, in which case it may be harder for employees to keep track of who may be participating in the webinar. As such, employees should avoid clicking on links or attachments from attendees they do not recognise. Another issue to consider is the privacy and security settings of video conferencing tools. Leading on from what we discussed in relation to phishing attacks, companies should update security settings to ensure that access to a meeting is password restricted. This avoids any unwanted visitors to a team conference or a client meeting. Further, companies should control when attendees are permitted to join a meeting and which participants can share their screens. We don't want the situation, or what we want to avoid is a situation where you're attending a meeting and then an unknown third party just jumps on the call and then can listen into what's being discussed. A key issue whenever you're using software, including video conferencing tools, is to ensure that they're kept up to date and patched. This avoids any cybercriminals exploiting known vulnerabilities with the software. This may well represent one of the most effective security measures a company can actually take. And where feasible, we recommend that companies configure their equipment to update automatically rather than relying on employees to activate the update themselves. As touched on earlier, there is a social and a work dynamic to video conferencing tools, and individuals may well be using video conferencing tools to stay in touch with their family or friends. And it may be that employees are tempted to use their preferred personal app for conferencing rather than the company-issued or preferred provider of video conferencing services. This represents a particular security risk, as individuals are unlikely to have conducted the same due diligence on the provider of their personal video conferencing app as the company would or should have performed on the vendor that provides their video conferencing tool. As such, there's a risk that the privacy and security measures in place will not be adequate or comparable to those in place on the company's conferencing tool. Accordingly, we recommend that companies ensure employees use only approved company video conferencing tools for work purposes. This will assist organizations in ensuring that business confidential information and personal information is kept secure. The topics discussed in this memo represent only some of the steps organizations can take to help keep data and confidential information secure. We appreciate that in the current climate, there may be a pressure on an organization to rush through and implement a video conferencing solution to enable its employees to continue doing business. In these circumstances, it may well be tempting to overlook some of the due diligence that would normally be conducted on a new vendor. However, we recommend always that the necessary due diligence and vendor onboarding processes are undertaken to ensure that the provider of video conferencing solutions provides adequate security to personal data and confidential business information. We hope that you found this useful, and thank you for tuning in.